Welcome everybody to Geekvice episode 214, proving any vice with enough geek can become a virtue. My name's Morph, that man's Kip. Good evening, Kip.
Good evening.
We are back with another episode of Geekvice, where today we are going to go into full board game mode. Watch out, transformation in progress. We're also recording this a little bit early, so it'll still be released in the podcast form on time, and the video will be available on time, but we're recording it a little bit early, so we haven't had as much time in between recordings. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the game of Mysterium. This is a board game by, how do you say it? Is it Asmodee? Asmodee?
I've heard people say Asmodee, Asmodee, Asmodee.
Asmodee. Yeah, it's for 1 to 6 players, and well, I guess it's not 1, it's 2 to 7 players.
Right.
One player is behind a little thing that can't be seen at all, and is, I don't know. You'll explain it all later. But it's up to 2 to 7 players. Ages is 10 plus. Board Game Geek does not rate this on a very complex, it is not a very complicated game. It's pretty simple to be able to get in and play. But the game is not, it's not easy. Let's not go crazy. The fact that it gave it a lower complexity rating, to me, I watched this game played and I go, yeah, I don't know that the rules are pretty simple, but the game itself is not simple at all. So, Kip, why don't you tell us a little bit more about this game?
Well, this game, Mysterium, it's won all sorts of awards. Our stream stopped, by the way.
Yeah, I'm trying to reboot it right now.
Oh, there it goes. Yeah.
There, we're back.
Okay. It goes by fast. If it is truly 42 minutes, I have no idea. I've played it a couple times now, and both times it just seemed like, oh, this game's going to go really fast, and it felt like it did, and then when it's all over with, you realize, well, we probably did play at least a half an hour, maybe longer. Well, I guess that's a good sign that it goes by. It takes time, and it didn't feel like it did. So, cool artwork on the box. For those of you who are watching the YouTube feed. So, what it is there was a murder. And it's unsolved. And one of the players plays the murder victim as a ghost. Everybody else plays like a psychic medium trying to solve the mystery through a seance. The game takes place over 7 rounds. You get this fantastic clock with a movable hand to tell you what round you're on, which is pretty cool. And you're given clues by the person who's playing the ghost. The hard part about it is the ghost cannot speak. So as the ghost, you're trying to, as you would in Clue, let people figure out person, place, and thing. Who killed, where they killed them, what weapon did they use. So what you do is there's actually in the rules there's an easy, a medium, and a hard level you can choose depending on the number of players. Let's just look it up in the fantastic rule book, which it's a very good rule book. I'll give them props on the rule book. It doesn't hurt that this game is fairly easy to learn anyway, but the rule book is well structured. You can figure out what's going on in no time flat. So, say you have 5 people playing. So, one's a ghost, so you have 4 psychics trying to solve the mystery. On easy level, you are presented with 5 possible murderers. On medium level, you would be presented with 6, and on hard level, you'd be presented with 7. So you can actually adjust the difficulty of the game based on how many possible bad guys to choose from.
Right.
And it's important because each person, each psychic player has their own person, place, and thing to figure out. It's not like everybody's trying to figure out the same one. Everybody is assigned their own.
That's one of the parts of this that I think is just, like, it's incredibly ingenious in the way they did it to kind of, you know, Clue is a very simple game that you can sit down and play trying to solve a person, place, and thing type idea. But this one takes that and kind of goes up to another level and gives it that complexity that's just a little bit where each person is trying to solve, they're still trying to solve one murder, but each psychic is focusing on a different person, in a different place and a different thing, which I guess makes it a little bit easier, but also a little bit harder, because you know that they can't be the same ones. So it's I think it kind of opens it up a little bit and makes it a little bit, it adds a little bit more of that complexity to it without making it too overly hard to figure out who it is.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It is cooperative, so you can work together to help people figure out who their clue points to. But you also have to spend time figuring out yours as well. And each time cards are passed out, you have a timer that's only 2 minutes, and that's all you get for that round trying to figure things out. So this is how the round works. You as the ghost draw 7 vision cards, and the cards are just like the cards you'd see in Dixit. Imagine that, made by the same people.
Yep.
And they just have funky artwork on them.
The artwork is incredible on these cards.
Oh, the artwork is fantastic, but it's like what you would expect from a dream. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's just stuff in there, you know, like this one is a guy wearing a mask riding in a train. There's a lizard jumping out of the way. There's cactus kind of flowing. Why is this weirdo driving a train? We don't know. So you take the ghost has to sift through this imagery, figure out if there's something in this imagery that matches the suspect they're trying to point to. And the suspect cards, they're all, I guess, given a profession. Like I just picked this one up off the deck, and she looks like she's an archaeologist. So it's a picture of her in her wayfaring outfit, and then it has like Aztec like trinkets and a spade and a jewel and drawings of old buildings and stuff. So based on that card, if you can find a vision that has something to do with that as the ghost, you then pass that vision to the person who is supposed to figure out that particular suspect. And the ghost cannot speak. Forgot to mention that.
No, so, you mentioned it. You mentioned it, but it's worth mentioning again.
It is worth mentioning again.
The ghost cannot speak.
Cannot speak. Not supposed to make any kind of facial expressions or anything to give it away. Which is, I thought would be tougher than it is. But you really don't look at the ghost when you're playing as one of the psychics. You are so focused on the vision that you were given and looking over all the possible suspects that you never look at the ghost to see if they're making faces with the suggestions you're making.
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're in. You're like, oh my god, I don't know what the heck this train has to do with all these people that are out here, but it could be something like the overall color of the card matches a color on the suspect's sheet, or could be like one little thing. Like there was one where at the so you do them in order. You figure out the person. Once you figure that out, then you figure out the place. Once you figure that out, then you pick out the weapon. And one of the weapons was a bottle of poison. Well, the vision card that was passed out was like a hourglass with a saw blade behind it and a wheat field and all this other stuff that really doesn't point to poison. But the only thing the ghost had to go off of was the poison's in a glass bottle. The hourglass is glass. Because it's not like you can go through this entire deck as the ghost and pick out the perfect card. Right. You draw 7.
And you only have those 7. Now, when you played it, because I've heard I've read a couple of different, I guess, modifications to the rules, or I can't actually remember if it's in the rules itself, but like when a ghost gives out one of his cards to one of the psychics, he can draw another card immediately to then still have 7 cards to pick out the next one, to who goes the next one. Did you guys play that way, or did you play where the ghost, basically, if you've got 3 other people playing, by the time he's getting to the third person, he only has 5 cards in his hand instead of 7?
We played it where as soon as they gave all the clues to one psychic, they could draw back up to 7 before they gave the clues to the next psychic.
Right.
I'm trying to remember if it says in the actual rules how to do it.
We'll see, and I think there's a couple spots in there where the rules are a little vague in that, and I think that's one of them. And another one is that you could give one, or it doesn't say that you can't give multiple cards to a psychic to figure out a particular thing.
Right, so, you can give them more than one card. You could give one psychic all 7 if you wanted to, but that would be like, holy cow, I can't believe all 7 of these cards point to this one thing.
Yeah, that
would be damn near impossible.
Yeah,
but
that'd be really hard.
If you read the instructions, step 2 is you give a psychic their vision cards. Step 3 draws vision cards back up to 7. Step 4 picks another psychic and repeats the same process.
Gotcha.
So to me, that says you draw after every psychic.
There you go.
And so that's how we played.
Yeah, which I think makes all the difference in the world between, that one card you might not think makes that big of a difference, but when you're trying to stretch to figure out where this goes and that kind of stuff, it is extremely important to have that extra card.
It is, because chances are you're putting somebody off till the very end because none of these cards point to that one thing.
Yeah.
And then you're hoping you just draw something that does.
Right.
So you not only are you picking from the vision that the ghost gave you to figure out your particular thing, whether it's your person, place, or thing, and helping your friends out, you also are given these what are called clairvoyance tokens. And what they are is they're little tokens in your color. On one side, it has either a check mark or an X mark. And you can actually, if you place the check mark, you can actually place it on near one of your teammates' tokens and say, yeah, I think they're right. Or you can put down the X and say, I think they're wrong. And what that does is there is a track on the game that you follow. Sorry if you're listening to the podcast and you can't see, but it's like this arch that has numbers going across. as you get these right, you move up the track. And at the end of the game, this comes into play at the end of the game. So I'm jumping a little bit ahead. So
But it's
we'll get
important.
back. We'll get back to that. But
Yeah.
that's the turn really is.
Right.
You're picking what vision card matches what you think your suspect is. Everybody else is doing it, and then you vote whether you think they're right or wrong.
Yeah. And that
Clairvoyance.
clairvoyance track, so I gotta like slow down a little bit. That track is, it doesn't come into play early in the game, but it is important to use those tokens, use those clairvoyance tokens, or to get that track to move farther forward, to make the end of the game a little easier, because it comes into play. It's extremely important for the end of the game and can be very detrimental if you don't get that, don't
It is
get far
super
enough in
important.
that.
Yeah, it is super important for the end of the game, and like I said, I'll point that out. So you have these awesome tokens. Each person gets a crystal ball in their color, and you place that token on what you think that vision is trying to tell you. Then once everybody's done that, the 2-minute sand timer runs out. Then you just go around, and I've watched a few videos. I've seen anybody doing anything from 1 knock is no, 2 knocks is yes,
Yeah.
to thumbs up, thumbs down, to just saying blue is correct, or something like that. So it's however you want to do the theme of the game. It's up to you. But basically, the ghost tells you which one is correct, which ones are wrong. If you're correct, you move up to the next level. So if you were at the level of figuring out the suspect, you get the suspect right. You move up to the next part, which is figuring out the places right. But you take the suspect card and you keep it, because that is your suspect.
Yeah. Which
And then,
also allows the other people, if they didn't get theirs, then that gives them one less thing they have to look for, and that makes the odds of them being able to pick which one it is a little bit easier.
yeah, exactly. So it's like process of elimination.
Yeah.
If everybody picked, and only one person got it right, that means for everybody, they know 2 cards that theirs is not.
Right.
The one you got right and the one they got wrong.
Yep.
So it helps you with the process of elimination. That's why the number of suspects ramps up the difficulty of the game. Because if there's only 1 or 2 extra, process of elimination gets a little faster. But if there's 3 extra, there's not enough rounds to get the process of elimination to work for all 3 phases of the game. So,
right.
So if you moved up to the next round or to the next level, the next round you would be picking out your place the murder happened. And like I said, then you move the dial on the clock to the next hour. You have 7 hours, 7 rounds, which is supposed to be an hour. I guess those are the witching hours. I don't know. To figure this whole thing out. So the longer it takes you to get from each level, the less time at the end. In fact, if you run out if you finish the 7th hour and not everybody's figured out their person, place, or thing, everybody loses. And we don't find out who the murderer is.
Right.
So you're saying murderer? I thought you told me everyone has their own. Well, kind of. Everybody has a suspect. It's like the ghost has amnesia. I mean, can kind of remember some suspects, and then once you figure all them out, then at the end it goes like, oh yeah, I remember who it is. So what happens is everybody takes their person, place, and thing cards that they got right and puts them in the middle. The ghost assigns each grouping a number. So like your person, place, and thing could be number 1. The person to your left's person, place, and thing could be number 2. And there is up to 3 vision cards that the ghost can play. And I say up to 3 because of the clairvoyance track.
Which is why it's so important.
Why it's so important to wager whether your friends are right or wrong and move up this track, because you start out, if you don't get any right, you still get to look at one of the vision cards at the end to figure out who the murderer is. If you move up to getting so many right, you get to see 2 cards. And if you get further, you get to see all 3 cards. So it's really important at the end to have wagered correctly with your friends. And how that works is our fantastic clairvoyance tokens on the other side has a number.
Sure does.
And this is the only time investigators are not supposed to talk with each other.
Yeah.
So if you only get to see 1 card, the ghost plays that 1 vision card. Since everybody can see 1, because even if you got 0 right, you still get to see a vision card. The people who don't get to see any more than that, at that point, have to place their vote, if you will, on which one is the overall murderer. So each investigator is given a little pouch with their color. And you put your cards in there when you get them right and stuff like that. And at the end of the game, you secretly place your numbered token in here, and that's your vote for who you think the murderer is.
Yeah, so nobody else knows who you voted for.
Exactly. And so everybody who only gets to look at 1 places their votes, puts their stuff away, and they're done. People who can look at the second card now wait for the ghost to play the second card, try to figure out what it is, place their vote, and then the people who get to see the third and final card, that card goes down, and then they can vote at that point. And then once everybody's voted, you gather them all up, you set out the tokens, and whichever number was selected the most from all the votes, that is the number that the whole group chose. So if you had 4 people voting, I'm not sure how you break a tie if it's 2 and 2, but if it's 3 and 1,
yeah,
3 people voted for number 1, 1 person voted for number 2, 3 votes for 1 makes number 1 the killer the whole group thinks it is.
Right.
And at that point, the ghost has these round tokens that have question marks on one side and numbers on the other side. They will have picked which number it is, placed it face down so the question mark is up. At that point, they flip it over and show you what number is the actual killer. And if you guys got it right, then you win the game, and the ghost gets to move on and, not be haunted, not the ghost being haunted by something. Maybe not being haunted by not knowing who their killer is. If you get it wrong, you lose. And according to the rules, the only time this seance can happen is on Halloween. So you have to wait till next year to do it again. So it's really that simple to learn. You get clues. You try to figure out who it is. You vote whether you think your friends are right or wrong. And you keep doing that until you either lose or you figure out who it is. It's that simple to learn. It's not that simple to play. You will get cards that the ghost just didn't have any great choices, but there would be, like I said, one little thing on that card that matches your deal, but you don't know what that is on that card. You don't know what you're trying to match up with. It gets pretty intense. You're like, time is running out and I have no idea what this means. And you're you and your friends are throwing out ideas. You can confuse yourselves.
Yeah.
You can talk yourself out of the right answer. Seen that happen before.
Well, and even just the idea, because you guys can all talk and you're trying to help each other out, the chance of being able to lead somebody down the wrong way, and not only lead them down the wrong way, you can get it stuck in your head. So if you get it wrong, so if you're trying to find the person and you're trying to find your suspect and you guess wrong and you still are trying to figure out your suspect, you're still going to have that card that was that dream card that was given to you. You're going to get
Correct.
another one, so you're going to have two of them that are supposed to lead you to the right person. The the I think the most fun part of this game is the fact that now you could have in your head after, oh, I got this one wrong, so I'm positive it's this guy over here. And instead of looking at the card objectively and trying to figure out what that card is telling you it should be, you're immediately trying to figure out how that card fits the suspect that you think it is. And
Yeah.
it throws, like, as the ghost, it could throw you completely into a frustration frenzy of just going, stop, stop, no, I was trying to counter the fact that you thought it was the first card said it was the gardener. I gave you a different card to give you completely away from it. Stop trying to make it the damn gardener. You know?
Exactly. And what's funny about it, excuse me, you could have picked a piece out of the vision card that was completely wrong, but still got the suspect or the place or whatever completely right.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the game, when you're trying to figure out the overall killer, and that wrong piece shows up in another card, you're going to think, oh, I know what it is. It was my guy. And you're completely wrong.
Yeah.
Because you misinterpreted the card but accidentally got it right. There's just so many ways you can mess yourselves up by overthinking this.
Yep.
It's great. I highly recommend this game, not only because the gameplay is that much fun and it's very social and you have a good time, you laugh quite a bit, but the game is just pure quality. The components, the cardboard is heavy duty stock. The shield that the ghost hides behind has these nice little pockets that you slide the cards in so you can keep everything straight.
Yeah.
So, you can do your person, place, and thing.
Now you can see it.
Yeah, person, place, and thing. And you can keep them straight, and you can be looking at it and nobody knows where you're looking. They can't tell if you're looking at their person and place when you hand out a card. This screen is top quality. Like you said, the artwork is fantastic. It seems like they thought of everything. The clock puts together and stands up, so it's not laying flat. It stands up. These cards are huge. I have big hands, and that's bigger than normal size card.
Yeah.
It's Dixit size cards for people who are wondering. And the artwork is great. They're heavy duty stock cards. They're playing card quality. The crystal balls are pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're really cool. I kind of geek out on good components like this, and this game has got it, so it's worth the money on just that part. Another good thing about this game is there's already a couple of expansions, so more cards to help, which is nice. I still think it would take a lot of plays to exhaust these cards, because here's one deck of vision cards. That's probably a little over an inch thick, inch and a quarter thick of cards. So there's a lot of visions to go through.
Now,
and then you try to match them up with the person, place, and thing. There's so many combinations.
Oh yeah, yeah. I could see it taking a long time to run out of
one
cards.
Thing I forgot to mention on the gameplay:
the Ravens.
The Ravens.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that too.
To keep up with the theme, you have these ravens, And depending on the difficulty that you chose, if you chose easy, you can use one raven per round. If you chose medium, you only have 3 ravens to use for the entire game. If you chose hard, you have 1 raven to use the entire game. And what it is you play a raven. I've seen it where people take the raven and put it up on their screen showing they're using that raven. I've seen people start with all 3 of the ravens on the top of the screen, and when they use it, they take it off. It's up to you, I guess.
Yeah.
But what that does is it allows you to discard vision cards and draw new ones because these just don't match anything you're doing. And I'm trying to remember what it says in the rules. I think it says you can discard as many as you want and draw back up to 7.
Yeah.
I've seen people play where if you do play a raven, you have to discard all 7.
Which, I mean, if you're going to, in my opinion, if you're going to use a raven to get rid of cards, that means you've got nothing there to, like,
yeah.
Because if you've got one card that will work, that you think, okay, this is going to lead them this direction, then you're going to play that card. If you're not going to use a raven if you've got something that you can play, because you can play it and then draw another card. But if you've got absolutely nothing, and especially as you're getting towards the end, because if you don't, again, like we mentioned before, if you don't get your person, place, and thing and weapon all done within the 7 turns, you lose.
Yeah.
So as you get towards the end, the ghost isn't trying to make you lose. The ghost wants you to win. So they're trying to help you get that far, and if they don't have anything in their hands, if you're getting close to that point, using those ravens, because nothing really gets the one last person that you need, use the raven, get all new cards, and hope that you get something to lead you where you want to go.
Yeah, and that's the way I saw it too, but it says can discard any or all of their vision cards. So it's up to you how many you discard, or it's up to you how you want to play it. You could say they have to get rid of all 7, or you can say any and all like the rule says. Yeah. That's the funny thing about this game. You can watch a video done by anybody, and you'll see everybody's played something slightly different. I guess they figure out what works for their house rules, and that's what they stick with. So that's what's cool about this game as well.
Well, and that also helps it. That helps you add a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little customizability, right? However that word is supposed to sound. Let you change up the game just enough to be able to replay this thing, however you want, to make it a little harder, a little bit easier, however you want to steer it, however you need to steer it for the group that's playing. So
yep.
I think it's great.
Speaking of customizable, I've seen a lot of people talk about it, and it makes sense to me. If you own Dixit, you could use Dixit's cards for vision cards. Totally makes sense.
Which I do own that game.
Yeah, so
that would be cool.
It'd be like you already had the expansion, you didn't even know it. So that's pretty dang cool.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, you're going to play this game a ton before things start to get old hat. And then you throw Dixit cards in there, and it may never.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, of course, there's 2 expansions. And, this is just one of those games that, to me, scratches the itch of why I like to play board games. And that is you get your friends together and you just have a good time. That's what this game is. You laugh a lot. You scratch your head a lot. You make fun of each other for some decisions you made. And then it's all over with. As the ghost, you can sit there and just laugh back and forth out of each other. Like, I was trying to get you to see this, but you just kept focusing on this. And you could consider it a party game. You could also consider it a real hobby game.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just one of those games that just, I think it fits a lot of niches. It's
Well, this is the type of game that I want to throw. Like I want to bring home and play with some non-gamer friends because I think
yeah,
this is the type of game, much like Clue. Everybody knows Clue. Clue's not scary. People know Clue, and this is Clue with just a little bit of a twist to it, just to change it up just enough. And so it's changing it just enough that the people sitting down at the table, the rules are simple enough, to learn the game is simple enough that I think if you brought new people to your table to play this game, they wouldn't be scared away from it. They might be scared at first, but once they kind of get into it, I think it would kind of feel comfortable. And like, so one of the videos that I watched of people playing this was Shut Up and Sit Down, and watching them play it. And the moment, well, first of all, they lost. They didn't actually get there. They had one person who didn't get to the final, like didn't get the weapon before the 7th hour, and they were like, well, can't we just do the last part anyway? And I'm like, well, sure. So they went ahead and did the last part and set it up and did that last little guess, and they ended up guessing right, which was kind of fun. So they kind of won. But first of all, one, they lost and they wanted to keep playing, and two, when even once they guessed right there at the end and were done, they could have walked away. They looked at each other and like, that wasn't very long. Maybe we should play again.
yeah, and that's exactly what happens.
And that's what this game kind of brings to the table. Like, once you get playing, and in 40 minutes, like, even if it were to take an hour, even if it's an hour, because in the Shut Up and Sit Down game, they didn't use the timer on how long it took. Like, so there were times where you could tell they spent a little bit longer trying to figure out what they were going to do. The edited version of their video was almost an hour long, so I'm guessing they played for a little longer than an hour.
Yeah.
But still, like, you're not because you're constantly thinking and trying to figure it out. It doesn't there doesn't seem to be any downtime. You're not sitting back not doing anything. You're actively trying to help, whether it's you yourself or one of your other psychics, or trying to remember who voted for what, or who had already guessed this, to try to figure out who should move on and where they should go and how this stuff all relates. You're constantly in it. So I think this is really cool. I think it sounds like an awesome game, and I can't wait to play it. So.
Oh, it's fun. It's one of my challenge games, and we broke it out last week, and it was one of those deals. We played a game, and then it was like, well, what do you guys want to do next? And one of the other people's like, well, I'd like to play it as the ghost once. It's like, all right, let's set it up, do it again.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those games. Like I said, it covers a lot of bases. I think it would be a good gateway game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good hobbyist game, and it's a good filler game. How many games can fill all those niches?
Yeah.
Other than this one.
Yeah.
The whole idea to me is brilliant. They just took Clue and turned it on its head. They thought of everything. Like I said, all the components are great. You even get a link in the rule book that you can go to and have a sound